Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm Simona Nicole, host of the show, mindset coach, and motivational speaker. I've made it my mission to help you get unstuck, shift your mindset, and understand your worth to help you live your most purposeful life. Each week, I will bring you an idea, guest, or a positive thought that will leave you inspired and empowered to win your life. We decide the stories we tell ourselves and where we invest our energy. I'm so grateful you popped in. Now let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to episode number 99 on the Happiness Happens podcast. I am stoked that we are at episode 99. I almost can't believe it. That's 99 episodes that have helped you learn more about yourself, helped you take the steps to actively change your life, and listen to incredible conversations by some of the most inspiring people that I've ever had the pleasure to meet in my life. And so I'm just grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're listening every single week. I'm thrilled that we're at episode 99, and I can't believe that we have been doing this show since the beginning of 2019, and in January of 2021, it is literally going to be 2 years that we've been talking on the podcast. I have lots in store for the new year, lots of changes coming to the show, but in a good way though. So I'm very excited to share those with you soon. For now, we have Colby Sharma on the episode today, and I wanted to just preface this conversation because I love Colby. Him and I met at an event 2 years ago, prior to me even thinking or dreaming up the concept of the Happiness Happens podcast. And it was at a self-development event, and we just had such a great conversation for, it wasn't even that long of a time, but then we always kept in touch and we stayed connected. And I'm thrilled that we did, because this conversation is probably one of the most inspiring conversations that I've had the pleasure of having on here, only because of the type of person that Colby is. He is incredibly insightful. He has so much to share, and he just brings so much value to everything that he's saying. And so I'm thrilled to bring him on here to the show and share with you his new novel. It's called The Curveball, and it's such an incredible read. I'm so stoked for you guys to hear this conversation, and please check out all of the links in the show notes so that you can grab his book and that you can connect with Colby. I also wanted to share that I appreciate so much every single review, every comment of the show, and all of your feedback. So if you're listening to this episode right now, you know I would be so grateful, so grateful if you could leave a nice, lovely review of the show and maybe a 5-star rating there. I would be so happy, because it helps other people who need to hear these episodes be able to find them. So if you're listening and you're loving the show, I would be so appreciative. And so that's all I wanted to share with you ahead of this episode. So stay tuned for episode 100. It's going to be an incredible episode. I'm doing a huge recap over the last 2 years, all of the things that I've learned. But for now, enjoy this incredible and super inspiring episode with Colby. And let's dive on in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. We have a super fun guest today. We are talking to someone that I've known for quite a while. We only met once in person at an event, and then we kept in touch for, I guess, almost 2 years now. And so I'm very excited to introduce to you today Colby Sharma. And he is a law graduate from the University of Liverpool. He's an international traveler and philosopher. And he is now an author. And he just wrote his new novel, and it's called The Curveball. And this novel, we're going to dive really deep in the episode about it and everything that it means. But the goal of the novel is to inspire readers through timeless lessons, and the title of the book is a perfect analogy compared to our current reality and what we're living right now with COVID. So, Colby, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Simona, it's a real pleasure to join you and your audience. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you. And thanks for, thanks for coming on today. And thank you for sharing your book and all of the wisdom I know you're about to share with us. But I guess before we dive into the book itself, I would love to know some of the journey that's brought you to where you are today. Because there's lots packed in there that I know. So I can only imagine how much there is that I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm of the view that, great books and great stories come from not so great experiences and experiences that challenge you, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And what that meant for me was, when I was a kid, I had a learning disability, something garden variety, but it was something that was like comprehension based and spatial based. But I successfully overcame that to excel and graduate from law school, and by doing some neuroplasticity training, by having great mentors and support around me. And I wanted to, and I've been a very passionate baseball fan like my whole life. I played baseball competitively, and I wanted to find a book and a medium to share that journey. And it's encapsulated in parts in the book. It's just sprinkled throughout, but like my story and that kind of journey is there. I mean, it's a journey that also, it's taken me through many walks of life, many places around the world, in Europe. I had the pleasure to go to Italy, to London, to all over everywhere. And, that's just kind of fed into the book in parts and parcels as well.
That sounds amazing. And I know that, I know that this book, I feel like is very aligned with who you are because of how it was born. Because when you and I first started talking, you were in the process of developing an app. And I feel like that we don't have to touch too much on it, but I feel like, it's almost a great lesson I don't know if you want to speak to this at all, but it's almost a great lesson for everyone who's listening that where you start isn't where you need to end up, right? Sure. Like we can pivot.
100%. 100%. I mean, I think, so many moments come together to make one like super moment. You need moments of like frustration, moments where things don't work out, where partners treat you maybe sometimes as a jerk. Maybe there's so many facets along the way that are microcosms to lead up to one moment. And, over the years when I was at school, when I finished the manuscript, when I was on my, beginning of law school, I'd go back to the file in my computer and it was called the Curveball. And I'm like, maybe I should make something happen with this book. Now is the time.
Wow.
Now is, the world's falling apart. Now is the time to really see what I can do with it.
So you had this book already sort of in the back of your mind from before.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote it in its kind of like draft-ish form.
Yeah.
Summer 2016 when I finished my first year of law school. And I remember, I was on my backyard patio and, I was about like 21 at that time. And I was just deliberate practice. I was around such like inspiration, and I had these ideas just flowing, and I really sought to really put pen to paper. And as you and your listeners know, the first draft is the hardest. The first anything onto paper from your brain is the hardest. And it was so many trials were in there, I would write on the subway. I would write at Tim Hortons near Front Street near Union Station.
No way.
I write in my backyard. And it was very tough work. It was very tough work. But it was necessary work.
100%. I was actually listening to something today. I was listening to this audiobook on my way to work today. And she was saying, it's, I'm sure you know it or you've heard of it. It's You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. Have you heard of that book? It has like a yellow cover.
No, I haven't.
It's a really cool book. It's a really cool book. I'll have to send you the title afterwards.
Totally.
But in the book, she was saying exactly like what you just said. When you first start writing a book, she's like, and I'm sure this must be true for you too, because it takes time to write, you know what I mean?
Totally.
But she would say like, oh my God, she's like, it would just be so overwhelming to, write this one chapter. And then it's like, okay, I got to write the one chapter, and it's like, I think that people don't always grasp the amount of background work and motivation that it takes to sit yourself down at your computer to write?
Honestly, I mean, that's what a lot of people were saying to me, like friends, or just like, we all have works in our minds, but to bring it and to sit down and bring it to life is daunting. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. I had self-doubts as to, would people jive with these characters? Would people like the message? And would people like, the progression of the story, how the story is laid out? And thankfully, a lot of the preliminary response has been, it's very good.
That's amazing. That's actually a really, really great point. And I think as when you're on the reading end of reading a book, you don't necessarily, a book or a novel or whatever it is that you're reading, you don't necessarily think about how the author has to think about the flow of the story and how the story is going to go.
Totally. I mean, this has a lot of flashbacks in it, but I'm of the view that flashbacks are a catharsis. They push the plot forward. They allow inner depth with the protagonist. And you'll see in this book, because he starts at his bottom, and he goes back, meets the people in time, but it's a whole cast of characters that help propel him forward in the denouement of the story.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. I want to shift gears for a quick second, because I think that, a lot of people listening can have different things that, maybe hinder them or help make them feel blocked, like they can't achieve their goal or they can't get to that next step. I mean, you said when we were just talking in your intro, you were saying how, when you were growing up, you had a learning disability. How has that influenced your life? Like, how has that made you strive for more? Because, I mean, you're a lawyer, you're a really successful lawyer. I mean, you're an author, like there's a lot there.
Well, profoundly, it profoundly influenced it. I've always said, I am where I am because of it, not in spite of it. And and even back then, people were like, well, shouldn't you feel baggage? Shouldn't you feel down about it? And looking back at it, it's like, those were the best years, most formative years of my life, because that taught me perseverance, that taught me rejection, that taught me all those many things. And a lot of that is encapsulated in parts in the book as well. And it just made me more empathetic. It made me more to strive to actually do something valuable in my time on the planet. And it made me, very conscious to chase impact.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that part about perseverance too. And I feel like you have a lot of drive within you, which is incredible, because a lot of the times and this is like myself included, when I hear no, sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I guess not. You know what I mean? But when you have that perseverance that you're able to be like, but yes, you know what I mean? But actually, yes, you're creating your reality.
100%. And I still carry those memories with me today in parts. And it's when things are going not so good, can I tap into those? I still remember what that feels like. I still remember that drive for people to take you seriously, that drive to accomplish.
That's incredible. It's so true. And I know that this part resonates so much with who is listening, like everyone who's listening right now, because that is like the biggest piece, is like that self-doubt piece. And then when you have that self-doubt, you can allow yourself to spiral out of control. Or you flip it and you allow yourself to persevere and continue on with your dream.
Well, I think that's a great point. And I think there's a fine balance, because if people are triggered too much one way or the other, the response is changed. The dynamic is just totally different. So I think it's that, but then there's the stimuli. How much stimuli are you around? Are you around people that, push you to depths that, you didn't have thought you would go to? Are you around people that hone your response? Are you around people that, always provide you inspiration? And, I've been very lucky, my family's been a great source of that. And my friends have been a great source of that as well.
That's amazing. Family support and friend support is so important, especially when you're about to hit like go on launching whatever it is
Yeah.
you're launching. When you have a people, like a
Yeah.
team of people behind you who believe in you is incredible.
And I want to touch on that one thing because I think it's trite to say, but a book is qualitatively different than an app. Because an app
Yes.
you pre-buy before you make it, but a book it's like, and I was taught this, sweating the product, making the product as perfect as you can, and then hitting go. So
Mm-hmm.
the mindset just is different.
It's totally different. It's totally different. Especially like the audiences, do you know what I mean? And like an app versus a book, the audiences in general are just completely different. On the topic of apps though,
Yeah.
are you going to create an audiobook version of your book?
I'm in that process right now. I'm looking to
Amazing.
find people. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, if you need this voice, you can just let me
Yeah,
know. I'm just kidding.
totally.
Just joking.
One of the characters is Italian, so you never know.
Oh my goodness. Let me just bring on out the accent. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh man. What are some of the main or like core lessons that readers will learn from the book?
Sure. So, I on page 23, he meets the characters and one of the pivotal mentors, and it's the importance of choosing your pitches when faced with like deep adversity. So choosing your pitches, choosing your responses. One response negates the other. You can't feel scared and feel full of freedom. You can't feel scarcity and abundance. You can't feel, deprivation and salvation. I think that's the opposite. But yeah, you can't feel one and you can't feel one or the other.
That's a really, really good point. That is a really good point because I think a lot of the times, I've heard it been said before. You use such beautiful words, but I've heard it been said before, like, you can't be like sad and happy at the same time. Do you know what I mean? But like, and it's just it's a very interesting mindset shift around what it is you're going to allow yourself to sort of dive deeper into.
Especially when faced with adversity and trying circumstances, you feel very compelled to the negative projection just comes out. But and then you might have like days where you're happy, there's less COVID cases or one restriction is lifted.
Wouldn't that be a dream?
But I think I think that is a very important lesson that I think your readers will take great inspiration from.
I think so too. I really do. So for those who are not yet familiar with the book, obviously, I'm just going to say this out loud here. Obviously, all of the links will be in the show notes, so you guys can all go and grab it and learn more about it. But I would love if you could just sort of give us a brief overview of what the book is about. I mean, I probably should have asked you this to begin with, but here we are. Yeah, you don't have to go super like in depth or anything, but just an idea of what the book is about.
So the book is about a struggling baseball player. He's at his bottom and he's going through deep pains in his life. And he meets these cast of characters that teach him how to separate ego from selflessness, how to turn fear into fuel and adversity into opportunity, and to come out successful and win the game of life at the end.
Okay, what I think is so cool and so different about this spin is it's a novel. So it's not like an autobiography. It's not you teaching from, your like as your own self teaching. Well, like, yes, it is you because you're the author, but in an autobiography or a book that's like a self-help book, if you will, typically is from your point of view, right? But this book is actually through the point of view of fictional characters, which I don't really think you see a lot of in the self-help world.
I would 10,000% agree with that. I mean, someone said to me, Colby, this is a fantastic book, but you're not sage enough right now. You're not sage enough with the experience and the time and the trials of life. You're only 26. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't need to be, because there's a whole people around my age and younger than me that I can definitely reach out to. And I think that's a great point you raised. You know, I love fiction. I love fiction because it's a great way to shape and change messages. Even if you look at Harry Potter, you know, there's so many messages in fiction, but I think using the sports analogy is a unique vehicle to drive that inspirational and that positive message, for sure.
I completely agree. And also, what's interesting that you said that there, I mean, I think that people will always have their perspective. People always have their opinion. You know what I mean? If you're too young or you're too old, but it's very interesting. I always find when people who are not you tell you about your own lived experiences. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, like, yes, okay, I could be younger. I'm also under 30. And, you know, I talk a lot about things that most people who are 50 or 60 have no idea. You know what I mean? So you can't really say that, you know, why or why not something should happen just because of your age.
Everyone has a message. Everyone has something that they want to get out. You know, I love you and your message, you know, how happiness happens, how to cultivate more of it, and why it's so important to live a more fulfilling life. I love the time when we connected. You know, I could feel this is a genuine soul. This is a genuine person that really cares about positive impact in the world today.
Oh my God, that's so nice. Thank you so much for saying that.
No worries.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so kind. Thank you. I want to know, what is the biggest lesson or one of the biggest lessons you learned as you were writing your book? You're like scratching, you're like, for everyone who's watching or listening, he's scratching it. You're probably like, there's a lot.
You know, I mean, like one of the quotes that, you know, my father shared with me, and this is like after the fact, but it's a profound point to reflect on the writing process, you know, and this is not my quote, so I don't know who to attribute it to, but like it's a very deep and resounding quote. I write because I cannot not write.
Ooh.
And you know, we debriefed and discussed that, and I'm just like, wow, I write for others. I write because, you know, to leave something lasting in a lasting medium like a book is just something very, very special. And I write to help others. I write to create impact. And I write, you know, because even like the learning people, like, you know, I really deeply feel that, you know, I see myself in them. And that's why I'm so driven. I did a speech to them yesterday, but I feel very deeply with that. And I really love that quote. And it's very moving and very powerful to me. But I think other lessons, I just recently learned the difference between line editing and copy editing, the importance of deliberate practice. You know, I can't stress that enough, deliberate practice, because you really do need to devote an hour a day, like a solid hour a day, you know, getting whatever it is onto the paper, like, and the importance of having a sounding board to relay that to. And, you know, it's times where, you know, you should take a break, but then come back to it. You know, even if you fail, come back to it. The draft isn't good, come back to it. And those are just tips and just things that I just, you know, I've just kind of like observed.
Those are some really powerful tips that you've observed there, my friend. That I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, my soul is like, I'm like so happy. I'm like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And you know what, you know what's the best about everything you just said is that it's transferable to everyday life. All of those points are things that, you know, if you want to be doing anything, you have to devote time to it. You have to be intentional with your time to it. I love that. Guys, transferable learnings, write them down, hit rewind, listen again. Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
And you know, I think it's important to have people that push good work out of you. You know, I'm very lucky and blessed because to have a father that, you know, I can kind of see what works and what does not work. I remember being at my desk in the backyard, like, here's how you do characterization. Here's how you do dialogue properly, how to structure it. So I think for your listeners and your audience, it's important to have people that really motivate and bring the fire out in you to get especially creative work like this done.
I think that's amazing. And I also think that it's so special that your dad was able to do that and help you with that. You know what I mean? Like, I really think that that is like game changer, because if, like you're saying, like if you don't have that person to support you, or if you don't have like that sounding board or someone who can pick you up when you're like blocked, it's very like you can stay blocked for a long time. But if you have someone who's like sitting there helping you unravel everything and helping you create and construct and all of that, you have this like incredible way to shift back into what you're doing and to continue.
Totally.
Amazing.
Totally.
Amazing.
I want to quickly pause this interview and tell you about the Handout Group coaches that I've had the honor and privilege of bringing onto the Happiness Happens podcast. With every conversation and interview, I've learned something so impactful and so life-changing. Inner You Life is the online coaching course from Handout Group that gives you the tools to get yourself unstuck, wildly happy, and thriving where it matters most to you. Your relationship to yourself, career, love, body, money, time, and more. From wherever, whenever. Recommended by Hugh Jackman, Dr. Mark Hyman, Forrest Whitaker, Elena Brower, and hundreds more. Taught in MIT, Stanford School of Business, and 50 plus institutes of learning across the world. Visit inneryou.coach and use the code HappinessHappens at checkout for $75 off. Now, back to the episode.
That sounds so nice. And, you know, I think that for those who are listening, like if you don't have that person in your life, I would say like, how can you find that person? But then also, how can you be that person, right? Because how can we be that for other people? How can we sort of take that and help other people become the best version of themselves every single day? Oh, here for it.
Absolutely.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you were writing the book?
When writing it?
Or before, or launching it?
So, I mean, in terms of like actually getting it, you know, into its like editing stage, that was brutal. That was absolutely brutal. You know, the 1 a.m. Saturday night edits, just going through it myself. The importance of finding, you know, great editors. Like that's a fundamentally important point, because finding good people that just like talk and like you just pay them, but people that like are invested just as you are in getting a great work out into the world. And you know, the same thing with the cover. The cover was like the easiest part, but like if it had gone wrong, like that would have you know, not been nice.
Everything. The cover is so important. It's the first thing people see. The fonts you use, how big the words are, like all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Like I think, you know, when it became like manuscript into like an actual like, you know, like book, and even, you know, honestly, when I got the book, I went on Amazon and I ordered proof copies of the book, because proof copies are author proofs where you can edit them in real time. You can actually, so just so your readers get a sense of it, this is like the proof cover.
Yes. I love it.
Okay. I actually ordered them, and I went through the book again when I had the actual in like book form. What works, what does not work, how to make it better, what does this sentence look like, how can that be conveyed in a different way?
Oh, wow. So you can do like another edit once you see the actual book in person.
And that's so cool with Amazon. That's so cool.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Is that not typical for other publishers?
Well, it all depends. Like you wouldn't get that really if you went to HarperCollins or Random House. I don't know, but Amazon self-publishing is a very good resource for self-published indie authors.
That's really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah. I didn't know that either. I just like, let me see what author proofs mean.
You're like, I will order a lot of these. No. Oh man, I love that. What was it like? Did you plan like a big launch for the book? Like, I know it sounds like a silly question, but like, what was that launch process like for you?
So we wanted to do it like at the Four Seasons downtown, but then COVID became even more restricted. So we were like, okay, let me do it on Zoom. And Zoom became a great way because I have a lot of family in the UK and they can join as well. In Kingston, Ontario family can join. Everyone can really join. And it's actually better in a way because I can just send the link to the Amazon page in the Zoom chat.
That's so true.
So even though I miss out on the physical like interactiveness of it, like I can't like sign copies like that or whatever, but I still have a very good resource. And leading up to the launch, it was all about pre-buzz. So
yeah,
I would do I do like MailChimp invites, RSVP invites. I'd share snippets of the book, like excerpts of the book, and in a MailChimp email or on Facebook, and put the RSVP link where they can actually go to sign up for the event.
Oh, that's great.
And that's something I'm continuing because, on my Instagram page, I have these illustrations of excerpts from the book, and and then I'm just putting where people can buy the book.
That's great. That's actually a really, really great technique if you think about it, because when you're in person, okay, when you do an in-person signing, like, yes, people are leaving with your book, but you're collecting more people in one area. And like you said, you're sending them the direct link, which is amazing because you just give them the link and they go on and they make that purchase and they have it instantly. That's it's so efficient. Like,
Totally. In person, a lot of like overhead, a lot of time, a lot of money. Here, I was very efficient, very lean,
100%.
very lean organization.
That's actually really, really great.
And very COVID. COVID is all about leanness.
How
to scale down. How to reduce costs.
It's so true. It's so true. It's like, okay, where can we cut from this? Like, how can we do this? But then it's also like on the flip side, it's so entrepreneurial. Like all these people who are like, yeah, okay, I've had that dream. I'm ready to start the dream. And I'm going to make it a reality. Just like your book, which is amazing.
Totally.
What advice would you give to other people who are looking to, start their dream, but maybe they're stuck in how to get started?
Well, I'd say the first thing is the why. Why do you truly like want to do this, whether it's like a book or an app or like a podcast or be a musician or whatever? Like, why do you truly want to do it? Like, because there's so much right now of like stuff that's like in vogue. Apps are like in vogue, and it's like, you kind of young people need to like do them, and that's fine. That's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, why do you deeply want to do it though? Like, why do you deeply want it? Like, tap into yourself. Like, do you have like pains? Do you have like struggles? People like they always do, and they always will. So how can that be used as a way to get the best out of you in terms of creativity, in terms of, and that will obviously translate to a very successful product or be on the way to being successful.
That sounds so beautiful. And what would you say is your biggest why?
Because I see myself in them. I see myself in people that, are going through tough times and want to come up better on the other end. I see myself in people that, people have just kind of like nudged as, maybe not good enough or not like confident enough or not like bright enough or smart enough. And I want to show them, like, I'm there. Like I am with you. Like, I've seen what that's like. I've lived that. And, by hard work and dedication, I came out of that.
That's incredible.
So, I mean, and I think this book is great because it can hit people that are like athletes, like coming up, and it's a good tool to have with them as a great resource. But it's for people that, mental health is a big thing with COVID right now.
Yeah.
October just happens to be Autism Awareness Month. It happens to be Mental Health Month. It happens to be all those great things that, with the curveball that COVID has tossed us, it's really forced us to find how do we truly seek opportunity in great adversity. And we only do that by going step by step, taking it one base at a time, recalibrating ourselves, learning that adversity is a team sport. You can't do one thing alone. No man's an island unto himself. But you need to have a cast of characters and a support system behind you. And, someone asked me this, but like, and I apologize if I'm going off script here, but like,
no, I love this. Keep going.
but you know, like, I mean, she's like, you know, was the book and the characters in the book inspired by real life or friends or family or whatever? I'm like, well, it was the people when I had like the learning disability in that time, they stood by me. They were my rock. They were the person in the back that had your back, and they propelled me to, you know, to find more about myself, to be a better person, and to find a way to succeed academically and interpersonally.
That's incredible. I'm like, I'm just like, it's amazing. And I think, you know, another great thing about the book, like you're saying, yes, it's great, you know, if you're an athlete up and coming or what have you, whatever industry that you're in. Like I'm in the self-help industry, and this is still so relevant. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't play sports. I'm terrible at them, to be honest with you. But I have a deep interest in learning and growing. And how do I better myself? How do I better others? And so
I like going back to the question, and I think your readers will find great value in this, is in the book around page 23, the character says to the other character, you know, adversity loves your ego. Ooh. Adversity loves the part of you that says, you know, I know it all. You know, I'm just going to continue to seek the home runs at the expense of the doubles, at the expense of the walk to first, at the expense of the fly ball. So it loves that part of you that is resistant to recalibration and resistance to inner growth, but at the expense of outward perfection, but at the expense of inner reflection.
Oh my gosh. That's that's beautiful. It's so true. It's so true. Totally. Especially that piece about the ego. There's so much ego, especially in adversity, like you're just saying.
And you know, I mean, and I think this is going to be one of the hallmarks of this book, and it's something that plagues people, that people they have with them. But it's the concept of inner critic. And,
huge.
And that can be very deceptive, but it can be very powerful if you don't know how to use it, and if you don't know what its true place actually should be.
That's so true. Inner critic is a big one, especially I think in this time of like pandemic and COVID and all this stuff. Your inner critic can be so loud. You know what I mean? Yeah. On a normal day, it can be so loud. Then you add all of this gong show that we're still continuing to be in, where I've managed to find a lot of gratitude in it, but still, like it's easier to get down on yourself. It's easier to feel not good enough. Like it's easier to feel all of those things, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. Where can our listeners find your book?
So you can find my book on Amazon.ca. All you have to do is type in the Curveball, Colby Sharma. It's going to be the first one. It's a beige cover. Your listeners can also find me on Instagram at Colby, Colby, Sharma Official. They can find me on Facebook, the Curveball 426. And they can find me on my website, colbysharma.com.
Amazing. I have a question for you. And this is a question that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show. And I'm feeling like you're just going to have an incredible answer for it, because you've had an incredible answer for everything else I've asked you today. But I love to ask this question, and I love to hear your thoughts. How can someone start to create more happiness in their day, every day, starting today?
Well, I mean, I think so. Like I'm just going to pull excerpts from the book.
Please do.
In the book, the guy, you know, he's won it all, and he's like, I'm just going to leave, and I'm going to help like others, you know, find a deeper mission within themselves, and I can be that change, that voice for change in the room. So I think to find like true and lasting happiness, it starts with a why. It starts with a purposeful mission. It starts with gratitude. And it starts with being like, you know, how can I make like each day like infinitely better than the last day? How can I make each moment last? How can I make, you know, each experience last, whether it's like a great song or a great movie or a great like, you know, like meal at a restaurant or a great takeout. But how can those many, many things add up into big levels of happiness in the next week and down the line. But it starts with that one and that small stuff.
That's a beautiful answer. And I think that that's such a great reminder to everyone who's listening today, because it doesn't really, like, we need to pay attention to the small moments. We need to pay attention to the little things, the little moments that create the bigger story. Yeah. Because those are the moments that change you, right? And I love that you said, you know, find the gratitude in, like, or, you know, enjoying like your takeout. How many people don't? You know?
I mean, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite books, and it actually, in bits and parts of it, I sprinkled in the book, but it's the quote is, "To fly as high as we think, we must begin as if we've already arrived." Ooh. And that comes from Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. And basically what I take from that, and I'd love to know what you think about that, is to begin, we must feel as if we've already arrived. We must already feel as we have true happiness and abundance to really find that. And once we start to feel in that mode, then it becomes easier to attract that and to attract even greater levels of that.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that so much, because it's kind of like you can't have one without the other. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have happiness without awareness, but you can't have, you know, awareness without a goal of wanting greater happiness. You know what I mean? I love so much that you said that, because that quote is so, so, so true. And I think what resonates the most with me, you know, with what you're saying, is just that it's about giving yourself the opportunity to actually achieve what it is that you want. And when you're able to do that, I think that, you know, you take this idea of what a happier life looks like for you, or like what your dream life might look like for you, and you're literally living that every single day. But you have to be intentional with how you do that. You have to put, you know, action, purposeful action behind all of the things that you do. Yeah. What do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, to find true happiness, but we need to also be, are we okay with being vulnerable? Are we okay with being, you know, we are a work in progress, or the work is a work in progress, you know, nothing changes if nothing changes. But those are many things that, you know, are obstacles in a way to true happiness, because we will always have that. And you know, if someone says I'm true always happy, that's just false.
Yeah, they're lying to you. But it's really a good point, because, you know, when I think about this, it's like one of the biggest things that I've always wanted to make sure that we always drive home on every episode. And I think that it just naturally happens through the conversation, but the underlying theme is that to find the happiness that you're looking for, you have to go through some things that you might not want to go through. You have to sit with some emotions that you might not be comfortable with. All of those things need to happen. And like, to say, you know, I think it would be like unwise to say that, you know, to be happy, that you have to ignore all the emotions that you have, because it's not the truth. Like, to be happy, you got to sit through it, and you got to journey through it, and you got to go through it.
Totally. I mean, like, you know, one of the influencers that I love is Tom Bilyeu. You need to make friends. You need to make friends with the pain. You need to look the pain in the eye, and then that's how you unlock it. And, you know, I begin the book, there's a page before the prologue, and it says, and the quote is like, you know, sometimes you almost have to lose something to find everything. And I think that really, it really weaves everything that we just spoke about together.
I completely agree. That's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful that I've had you on here today. What beautiful words
to share. It's been a joyous moment. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely have loved this. And I'm so glad that we've reconnected through your book.
Me too.
I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to read it.
I can't wait to send you a copy. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm really.
Oh my gosh, please. Then yes, I would absolutely love to read it. And you know, I will hop in there and give you that Amazon review, because it's important.
Thank you so much.
So everyone who's listening today, when you go and grab Colby's book, you have to leave him a review on the book, because reviews are so important, right? Like, reviews are the basis, like referrals and you know, referring something out. People love to purchase things that have been received someone else's seal of approval, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So totally so important.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, of course. Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
This has been a blast, Simona. Thank you. I loved every second of it.
Me too. I really have. I really have.
We've connected. I love it.
I know. Me
many
too.
Many more to come.
I sure hope so. I really do. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode on the podcast. All of the links are in the show notes. So please go to the links, connect with Colby, grab his book, be inspired, and honestly, re-listen to this episode from the beginning, because every moment of it was gold. And I know that somebody, I know, me too. I'm ready to okay, can we listen now? I love it. But definitely make sure you share this with someone that needs to hear this message. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.
Thank you so much. It's been a joyous pleasure. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these words have brought you inspiration, insight, and a bit more happiness. Please leave a comment or a review if this episode resonates with you. I would be so grateful. Until next time, remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.